Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa has updated the pay scales for the country's top public office bearers. Those with increased salaries will include ministers, deputy ministers, members of parliament and their provincial counterparts. This means that deputy ministers and others on the list could take home more than 2 million rand per year. Is this not a slap in the face for many who are struggling to survive? With the cost of living increasing and interest rates recently hiked, is it justifiable for politicians to be earning so much when the country's economy is buckling? For more on this, we are joined by economist Dr. Azar, Jammine and Cosatu's General Secretary Bheki Ntshalintshali. Thank you both so much for your time. We do appreciate it. Perhaps we can start with you, Mr. Ntshalintshali. Would you not consider this a slap in the face, considering that Cosatu has been at the forefront of trying to motivate why public servants who are on the ground every single day, working in sometimes very difficult conditions, for them to get a salary increase, and now you have the so-called executives possibly getting an increase and earning over 2 million rand a year?
No, indeed, it is. You remember when the report was recommended to the president, we raised the same issues that the frontline workers who are earning and who have put their lives on the block to save our life, who have been regarded to be good servants by the state, were not given an increase. They did not even honor a wage agreement. The judges themselves write it down, this agreement, as a illegal agreement, to say the least. Now, the same people who have been either pleading poverty or who have denouncing the wage agreement that was signed between government, they have given themselves these increases. Under the current conditions that we're facing, where government is pleading poverty, where the productivities of these members of parliament is desired, they don't deserve the increase that they are getting at this time. We must emphasize that ordinary 3% wage increase under normal condition would be something else. But under the current conditions, I think is a slap is a very bad thing.
Dr. Azar, many would say, looking at where our economy is, looking at unemployment, looking at where we are with the cost of living increasing and people really struggling to survive, it's almost tone deaf, and to say that government is not really understanding or reading the room right by wanting to increase. Many would say it's just 3%, but in the broader scheme of things, you're pushing an executive salary, a government executive salary, to over 2 million a year.
Yes, I think it is a case of not really listening to what the people are saying. In the broader scheme of things, the actual amount that is going to be involved is not huge, but it is sending the wrong message. The government's wage bill as a whole is earmarked to increase by just 2.8% in the current fiscal year, so 3% is slightly in excess of that. But it's really in an environment where government is pledging to try and maintain fiscal discipline through restricting public sector remuneration. It doesn't send the right message. The other aspect that one needs to consider is, are we getting bang for buck for the amount that we're sending? We've been complaining for ages, and the President himself had pledged to reduce the size of cabinet, and yet we've got all these deputy ministers. Are they really producing, giving back and adding value to the economy sufficiently to justify a 2 million rand a year? That is, I think, the big question that needs to be asked.
Certainly, and Mr. Ntshalintshali, maybe you can come in here and speak to that particular matter, because many would say, if you just look at the state of this country, if you look at the lack of service delivery, if you look at especially everything is more highlighted when it's election time. And we saw during the local government elections last year how you had politicians coming out and saying, we'll do better, but that's just promise after promise. Yet they're the ones that sit with over 2 million rand per year and nothing is really being done. So are we actually getting what we're paying for? And many would say that might not be the case. Your view on that?
We don't get it, to make it simple. Look at our state of the economy. Look at our roads. Look at the corruption. Read the AG's report. and come back and say, these are supposed to be the watchdog of our economy, but we are doing the opposite. Look what happened in Parliament when you just watch the Parliament. It's become a circus. And these people today, they will be smiling all the way to the bank. It doesn't make sense to us. You need also to ask, who compose this committee that make the recommendation? Are they not people, doing their own beneficiaries in terms of this particular issue? The recommendation that they make are recommendation that they are going to benefit them. Of course, then the people will be saying, let's look at why the president have signed these issues. I think it's bigger than that. We want to see the opposition party, we want to see other people in parliament coming out and says, we don't deserve this money. President, review your decision. We can't be getting this kind of increase when our people are really in deep crisis.
Dr. Azar, I want us to speak about how agencies like rating agencies, and if I'm not mistaken, I might be, the International Monetary Fund had also alluded to the fact that government needs to look at their public wage bill and how that is ballooning. And now you have the president saying, well, maybe we should just consider a salary adjustment. Yes, it's just 3%. But if you have global agencies red flagging, despite the fact that our current unions, for example, Cosatu, Labour Federation, and other political parties saying, what are you doing? This is completely unjustifiable. Surely that message should get to the president, but it seems as though it's not.
Obviously, ratings agencies are looking at this and seeing the negative message that this is sending across. I'm not clear in my own mind as to how seriously they would regard this as opposed to the absolute amount that is involved. The absolute amount is really not going to break the back of government spending at all. But it's the message that it sends and whether this will be seen to be compromising the fight against that fiscal austerity. Because the relative success that the government has had in the last year or so in terms of restricting government spending and especially at the cost of the workers, the increase in public sector remuneration has been reviewed as being relatively positive by the ratings agencies and has been one of the factors that has underpinned why they improved the credit rating outlook from, in the one case, to positive from stable, in the other case to stable from negative, which means that we won't get further ratings downgrades anytime soon. But the message here is a negative one, and I'm not quite sure just how negative they'll see this as being.
Especially because of what we saw play out, Mr. Ntshalintshali, in Parliament last week, where everybody's saying this is not how members of Parliament should be behaving. And yes, while this came from a different political party, again, it just sends the wrong message that what is on government's priority list. If you just look at what happened with the KwaZulu-Natal floods, people are really struggling there. Lives have been completely destroyed. And, Dr. Azar keeps saying if you look at the border scheme of things, it's not going to break government's purse. But again, that money could be moved elsewhere, or it could be considered for public servants, because we do know that Cosatu and other labour unions have been asking government for a salary increase for some time now.
I think it may also be sending a message to the workers that come this collective bargaining season this year, workers should be able to be asking more and saying there was that 20-year gap where they did not get increased. The following years, they've been getting less than 1.8, about 1.8% increase. Is it not the right time that they should be going to the same government and say, you have given yourself so much at the rate in which you are earning? Most of these people, none of them earning less than R1 million. But look at where the teachers are, where the nurses are, where the police are in their majority in dealing with those particular issues. And indeed, I think it sends a message that those who are in executive, they are so greedy. They're just looking at themselves, and they are just giving them what we normally call it a gravy train. Totally unacceptable.
And Dr. Azar, I see you shaking your head there or nodding rather, because that's what it boils down to. I mean, if you look at, for example, I did a story on Monday where the Human Rights Commission visited Rahima Musa Hospital, and the doctors there are saying, we don't have resources. Instead of increasing salaries by 3%, and I know you keep saying it won't break the bank, but that money could possibly be diverted to other very urgent matters, for example, under-resourced hospitals, or, for example, thinking about increasing, like Mr. Ntshalintshali said, teachers. Teachers are not coping. Nurses are not coping. Public servants are not coping because everything is going up.
Without a doubt. The amounts we're talking about is, I believe, for the cabinet itself, the total wage bill is about 170 million rand. The total, and then if you add the provincial MECs, it comes to another 500 million. 3% on 670 million amounts to an extra 20 million rand. In relation to a total total public sector wage bill of, I think it's 630 billion rand, it is a drop in the ocean. But you are quite right. That's 670 million rand could have been moved to other areas where it could be far more useful. These people are not short of money. Unfortunately, it is a reflection, again, on the manner in which politicians are holding sway and not really caring about the well-being of ordinary individuals.
Mr. Ntshalintshali, I want to ask you what the plan is going forward, because even when I tweeted and said we are going to be having this panel discussion, there were a number of tweets that said there's no point in discussing this because nobody's going to listen, and this conversation is just going to go in circles. And, you know, the reality is that a lot of the time this happens. There are marches, there are protests, government accepts the memorandum, and then nothing is ever done about this. As the Labour Federation, do you not think you still have the muscle and the power to go to government and say, but what are you doing? Are you not understanding the struggles of the people on the ground that have to adjust to the cost of living because everything has gone up?
I think this one is water under the bridge. We try to make noise when this report was made public, that the president was considering this report. We appeal to everybody to join us and raise these particular issues. And people were thinking, no, it's not that much in dealing with those issues if you look to the bigger schemes of things. But we have to compare these things appropriately. You need to compare a politician, one politician and one teacher, one nurse and one teacher. What are they earning and what is the differences? How many years will a nurse be working just to get an annual, the total of the wage increase or the total package for the member of parliament or for the MEC or for the ministers in dealing with those things? It's a huge gap. It just increases inequalities among those working people in dealing with those issues. And then indeed, of course, we can't then keep quiet because it's under the bridge. We'll need to raise it consistently. Somebody might be listening to these particular issues and other people might be joining this kind of a debate. People are marching, are protesting. Their cost of living is very high. Some of these people that we're referring, beside the wage salary that they are getting, they got a lot of benefits that we are paying for, that these poor people who are talking about, the teachers, they pay tax, and where this money goes, now it goes to the politician. Totally unacceptable.
Mr. Ntshalintshali, you said, you know, somebody will listen. Is somebody listening? And if they do not listen, what is your plan of action?
Look, it's not something that you can just think with a thumb. I mean, with your thumb. You need to go back, sit back, and talk about these issues, where it's going, talk about the economy, talk about the plight of workers. Fortunate for us, this year, we're having a Congress, serious discussions about the situation that affects our members and affect our economy.
Okay, great. And then maybe we can just end off with you, Dr. Azar. It seems as though things are not going to get any better. We are seeing globally how tough things are getting, and global interest rates are set to increase. The picture does not look good. And this is going to have a direct impact on the cost of living and everything in this country.
Unfortunately, in as much as South Africa may not be affected quite as much as other countries due to the fact that we are resource intensive, and some of our resources prices are doing quite well. The fact that the world is now about to raise interest rates fairly dramatically across the globe augurs ill for the outlook for the world economy, and this is likely to have a negative impact on South Africa's economic growth going forward as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your insights. We do appreciate it. That was Economist Dr. Azar Jammine and Cosatu's General Secretary Bheki Ntshalintshali. We just hope that government officials out there could just listen, because the struggles of the people on the ground, it's not easy, and hopefully they will not be so tone deaf to the circumstances.